Two things. One, there are some dangerous myths in the anchoring world right now that we need to set right. And two, the old 5-to-1, 7-to-1 scope thing isn't actually as relevant anymore as you might think. I want to talk to you about anchor chain. It's heavy, it's annoyingly expensive, it's extremely difficult to keep clean, but it's completely necessary. The decision you make right now about your anchor chain is one that will either haunt you or save your boat's life later on. Choose wisely. Let's start with the obvious question a lot of new sailors quietly wonder. Why do we need chain at all? Why not just rope? Rope is cheaper, it's lighter, it doesn't rust, and it doesn't make your foredeck look like the inside of a scrapyard. But chain is the magic ingredient that makes your anchor actually work. When your boat pulls on the road, the chain forces that pull to stay low and horizontal. Anchors want to be dragged like this so that they hold and dig in. If you pull up on the anchor with, let's say, just rope, even the really good anchors will pop out like a wine cork. One article I found said it perfectly. Chain is heavy, very heavy, but that weight provides holding power. I love that quote because it sums up everything. Chain is heavy, annoyingly expensive, and completely necessary. And on top of that, chain has abrasion resistance. If you were to drop anchor in, say, the Bahamas over a patch of coral, rope has a lifespan of a breadstick. Even 10 or 20 feet of chain can give your anchor the right set. Full chain rode? That's the gold standard for cruisers. Now let's get into the myth, the legend, the argument that every cruiser has over a sundowner. How much chain do you actually need? And I'm going to tell you right now, people get this wrong all the time. You hear everything from just carry 10 feet to only amateurs have less than 300 feet. Or the very common, the length of the boat should be what you have in chain. But here's the truth. On a cruising liveaboard boat, more is better, up to a point. There's an old piece of anchor wisdom that says your chain should be at least the length of your boat. A 40-foot boat should have 40 feet of chain, but that's really a bare minimum, and that's really only good in sort of lake sailing and day anchoring. That's like saying you should have at least one life jacket on board. Technically it's true, but would you want to rely on just the one? Probably not. Let's talk about real-world practices. In the Caribbean, it's extremely common for boats under 40 feet to carry between 100 and 200 feet of chain. The further you get into long-term cruising circles, the higher those numbers go up. It's not unusual for people to carry 250 or 300 feet of chain, even on fairly small cats and monohulls. One article I found straight up recommended at least 300 feet of chain for the typical cruising boat. That's not because people anchor in 80 feet of water every day. It's because depths vary, weather varies, and sometimes you want to anchor where the really good sand is, but the good sand is down a slope, not up on the shelf. But yes, there is such thing as too much chain. Chain is incredibly heavy. Load 300 feet of 5/16 chain in the bow of a 35-foot boat, and you're going to sail like a submarine. The bow squats down, the stern lifts up, and you'll slam into waves like you owe them money. You have to balance practicality and physics. This is where scope formulas come in, but don't worry, we're not going to do math class today. You've heard of this 7-to-1 rule, right? 7 feet of rode for every foot of depth of water you're in. That was designed for rope rode, not all chain. With all chain, modern articles and anchor experts now suggest a much more realistic approach. 50 feet plus twice the depth. That came from a Nautic Ed article, and it's becoming pretty widely adopted. So if you anchor in 20 feet of water, 50 feet plus twice 20 gives you 90 feet of chain. Much more practical than 140 feet at the 7-to-1, but it's still safe. If you're using the mixed rode chain plus rope, the formula changes to 50 feet plus 4 times the depth. That gives you more stretch and shock absorption. But here's the thing, all this depends on your boat, your anchor, your conditions, and your comfort level. While we're on the topic too of safety and comfort, we should mention anchor alarm apps. I don't care how good your chain is or how bulletproof your anchor or how well you set it, you should still run an anchor alarm. And there are some great apps like Drag Queen, Anchor Watch, or even built-in alarms on chart plotters or your smartwatch. But the big mistake people make is setting the radius incorrectly. If you have 120 feet of chain out and you set your alarm radius to 30 feet, well, you're going to have a very long, very annoying sleep. Set it too big and it won't alarm when your boat is drifting off to Cuba or something. So anchor alarms are great, just understand how chain length affects your swing circle. Your chain might lie neatly on the bottom when the wind is light, but in gusty conditions your chain can straighten, and your boat can pivot, and your swing radius grows. All of that matters when you're setting the alarm. Now let's talk about the unsung hero or villain of the story. It's your windlass. If you're one of those lucky cruisers who loves the gym, well, you're still not going to want to hand bomb 200 feet of chain. And if your windlass can't pull the chain you bought, you're going to find out mid-retrieval. Windlasses are rated for load, and that load includes the weight of the chain, the anchor, the mud stuck to the anchor and the chain, and the suction force that you need to break free from the bottom. If you plan on upgrading to heavier chain or carrying more of it, make sure that your windlass isn't a tired old relic from the 70s or 80s. Because a windlass that jams or overheats or trips the breaker is the fastest way to ruin your day. Which brings us to chain types. This is where a lot of people accidentally buy the wrong thing, so pay attention to what you need. Chain doesn't come in different sizes so much as it comes in different link types. Your windlass gypsy is cut for a very specific chain. It might say 5/16 BBB or 5/16 HT or 8mm G4, but these are not interchangeable. I've seen people buy 8mm chain thinking close enough, only to discover that their windlass spits it out like a sunflower seed. So let's break them down. BBB chain is short link chain, often used on smaller boats. It's strong and it fits some older windlasses that you'll find on Craigslist, but it's not as strong for its weight as high test chain. Then you've got proof coil chain, cheap, long link, and not ideal for most gypsies. And finally, the superstar of modern cruising chain, high test, often called HT or G4. It's stronger for its weight, works with modern windlasses, and allows you to carry more length without adding too much bow weight. But strength grade matters too. High test chain is usually about 45% stronger than BBB in the same size. That means you can safely carry lighter chain that still has the strength you need. The most common size for cruising boats 30 to 45 feet is 5/16 HT or 8mm in the metric. But don't guess. Check your windlass, check the manual, your gypsy, check your boat manufacturer's recommendations. And when in doubt, choose the stronger option. Chain also wears in ways that you don't usually see. Articles point out that chain wears from the inside the links, and can look perfectly fine from the outside while being dangerously thin on the inside. If you're buying used chain, measure it with calipers. If it's more than 10% worn, retire it. Galvanizing matters too. You want bright, smooth, evenly coated links. Avoid chain that looks patchy, flaky, or pre-rusted in the store. That's not character, it's a hazard. Another interesting point I found in this research, the catenary effect. The curve of the chain that helps keep the pull low mostly disappears in very strong winds. One Morgan's Cloud article said that under heavy load, chain straightens and loses the curve entirely, meaning that during a blow, it's really the anchor doing the heavy lifting, not the weight of the chain. So that's something to keep in mind. You're not buying a miracle when you buy a chain, you're buying into a system. So what should you actually do? Let me boil it down. For most cruising boats headed to the Caribbean between 32 and 48 feet that are out there doing this right now, they're going to be running an electric windlass which came with a 5/16 gypsy. That's the most common thing we see. On it, they're going to have 5/16 HT chain, usually 200 to 300 feet of it. On the end of the chain, they'll have a swivel and then the biggest anchor they could fit on the roller, most typically a 55-pound plow. This recipe will account for about 75% of cruisers in my experience. Some go even bigger, but no one should go smaller. Oh, and you should have a snubber, but I think that's a whole different video. Anchor chain isn't exciting. You'll never see a top 10 sexiest anchor chains list on Instagram, but it is absolutely necessary. It's the thing that lets you sleep at night, eat dinner peacefully, and keep your boat exactly where you left it while you're snorkeling or having rum drinks on the beach. Do it right, buy the right chain in the right size for your gypsy, in the right length for where you're going, and your boat becomes a tiny floating home that stays even when Mother Nature tries to blow her off the map. We also have a great article on our website that takes a deeper dive into anchor chain materials and strengths if you're up for some more learning today. It's called Making Sense of Marine Chain Standards. I'll leave a link in the description for you. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps us out, but also lets YouTube know that you like sailing videos, so it'll show you more of them. And hit subscribe so that I can see you again next time.